Hello and welcome to the tutoring video that's going to be going over a Chapter 9 depreciation problem. This is going to be the problem that Mrs. Curry designed for herself that's on Moodle, I believe, as your depreciation homework problem. It should look something like this. Okay, feel free to pause that if you want to take a look at it. But like I said, she designed it herself, or I'm assuming she did. It will be going over the straight line method, double declining balance method, and unit of activity method of calculating depreciation, okay? So the first thing you want to note is whenever you start doing these problems, okay, you need to notice first how many years you think you're going to be using the long-term asset, okay? Then you need to calculate the depreciation, okay? Then you'll have another column for accumulated depreciation, and that's where every time you calculate depreciation, you'll add that again to the previous year's worth of accumulated depreciation, okay? And then you'll have your book value, which is your cost. For straight line method is your depreciable cost, subtract your balance and accumulated depreciation, okay? So like I said in the last video, the straight line method has the same amount of depreciation expense every year, okay? So what you'll do by solving that is you'll take your depreciable cost, which for straight line method is your cost minus your salvage value, okay? So if you'll notice for this problem, your cost is $96,000 and your salvage value is $6,000. So your depreciable cost is $90,000, okay? Then you will multiply that by 1 over how many years you think you're going to use the asset, okay? So for bus number 1, it says the useful life in years is 5, okay? So for the straight line method, your depreciation expense is $90,000 multiplied by 1 over 5 years, okay? And it's the same thing all 5 years, okay? So your depreciation expense will be $18,000 every year, and then every year you add that $18,000 in accumulated depreciation. So the first year you'd have $18,000, the second year you'd have $36,000, and so on and so forth, okay? Your book value for your very first year is going to be your depreciable cost, subtract your balance in accumulated depreciation, okay? And then your book value, you will use the number that you subtract out accumulated depreciation from and keep subtracting the balance from that, okay? So this should be the answer that you get for your straight line method, okay? So you've got your depreciation, which I said was the depreciable cost multiplied by 1 over the useful life, okay? And then your balance in accumulated depreciation is going to increase $18,000 every year, okay? And then your book value is going to be equal to your depreciable cost, subtract your balance in accumulated depreciation, okay? And every year you're going to keep doing that, okay? And then at the very end, it says your salvage value is $6,000, okay? And I mentioned in the last video, you never want your book value to go below your salvage value, okay? So feel free to pause the frame if you want to take a look at that and check your homework, okay? So that was the straight line method, okay? And then in the last video, we talked again about double declining balance, okay? The idea for double declining balance is you take the depreciable cost, which is the cost for double declining balance, okay? In this case, for the first year, it'd be $120,000, okay? Then that's going to be multiplied by 2 times 1 over the useful life, okay? And then you'll have your depreciation for each year, and each year the depreciation will be different. The depreciation expense will be different, and you'll notice in this example that they are halving, okay? So for 2012, the depreciation expense is $60,000. For 2013, it's $30,000, so on and so forth, okay? One thing you need to notice is for double declining balance, again, you cannot let your book value go below your salvage value, okay? So if you do the double declining balance for your 4 years, okay, your useful life, you'll notice that your balance in accumulated depreciation is $112,500, okay? And that'll make your book value $7,500, okay? You can't have a book value that's less than your $10,000 salvage value, okay? So you have to add that back, and you'll just do exactly what I have done right here, and you will edit that right here to be equal to 10,000 instead of 7,500. Okay, and then you'll also change that with your accumulated depreciation. Okay, so that's your double declining balance. So if you want to pause the frame to check your work, that's great. Okay. The third method that we're going to go over is units of activity, and I think I referred to this a little bit in the last video, but you'll see on your paper it says for the units of activity method, total miles expected are 120,000, okay? Actual miles used in the first 3 years were, and she actually gave 5 years, okay? So we'll look at that, okay, and the first thing you're going to do is calculate your rate per mile, okay. We noted in the last video that our rate per mile is cost minus salvage value, okay, divided by the total expected miles, okay. So your rate per mile in this case would be your $80,000, subtract your salvage value of $8,000, which is going to be equal to 72,000, divided by 120,000 miles, okay? So that'll make it 60 cents per mile. And I did that right there. Okay, so that's calculating your rate per mile, okay? And continuing on, what you'll do is for every year, you'll calculate your unit of activity. Okay, and the way you'll do that is you'll take the estimate of how many miles or usage you'll have multiplied by the rate per mile, okay? So I'm going to hold this up again, and remember that you can't ever let depreciation or your book value go below your salvage value. So you'll see another edit right there on the bottom again, because our book value was at $5,600 and it had to be at $8,000. Okay, so we made another adjustment for that. So that's a broad idea of doing your unit of activity. Okay, so those are the three methods that you need to know how to solve for depreciation expense. Okay, for the instructions at the bottom, we've done a little bit of this, but I'm going to go talk about one of the notes she made on here. Okay. The instructions on part A says for each machine compute the annual depreciation for each year of its useful life, the balance and accumulated depreciation at the end of the year, and the book value. We did that. Okay, so if you checked your work with what I held up to the screen, you did that right, so great job. Okay. For part B, it says if bus number 2 was purchased on April 1st instead of January 1st, what is the depreciation for the year? Okay, so you might think, I have no idea what that means. Okay, so what we're assuming, okay, so when we do double declining balance, okay, we recognize that you do 2 multiplied by 1 over the useful life in years, okay? We are assuming that that is also multiplied by 12 over 12 to symbolize a whole year, okay? So anything times 1 is itself, okay? Whenever you purchase a machine, okay, in the middle of the year, you can't assume that it's 12 out of 12 months, okay? So you're probably already thinking ahead. I know you probably already know what I'm going to say, okay? So what you're going to do instead, okay, if it was purchased on April 1st instead of January 1st, that means there are 4 months, okay, or yeah, 3 months if I could do math. There are 3 months that have gone by that you haven't accounted for in calculating your double declining balance, okay? So what you're going to do, instead of multiplying it by 12 over 12, okay, because 3 months have gone by, you're only going to multiply that by 9 over 12, okay? So if you want to take a look at that, here is the problem right there, okay? So we took our cost multiplied by 2 over 1 over the useful life, multiplied by 9 over 12 to signify that we've had 3 months go by in the year already, okay? And then the next year we'll start over calculating depreciation, okay? So you'll start over again with 12 over 12 because you're starting another fresh year, okay? So I hope that was helpful. You'll need to know how to do straight line method, double declining balance, and unit of activity, okay? They're all doing the same thing, calculating depreciation, but they all do it in different ways. So I would also know the definitions of those in your chapter, and I hope that was helpful. So we'll see you next time.